Hey, it's Chris. You didn't think the end of 2022 would stop me from talking about 2023. We're talking about the 2023 upcoming 10 games that I think should be on your radar already. Now, there aren't a ton of games announced. I mean, I have the most for January, a few smatterings in February, March, and April. But really, these are the biggest names because we have three absolutely massive games that are going to be head-to-head. 2 of them in January and 1 in February, which are just going to give your wallet a good run for your money. As always, a few others that are obviously of interest, but are going to make waves in some way, shape, form, or the other. And that's aside from all of the other ones that we don't know yet, and the ones that are always coming out of the woodwork and surprising us in good ways. That being said, let's do this in order from numbers 1 to 10 that I'm most interested in the upcoming 2023. Now, this one is not going to surprise anyone if you've heard the rumblings and the rumors and the confirmation we got earlier in the month from Simon. This is Marvel United Multiverse. The What If Multiverse is coming together as if we don't have enough What If Marvel United already, right? We do. We have way too much. I was just trying to play with my kids the other day, and I'm like going through like 4 or 5 different boxes. So, Simon, what I really need is a collected organizer. Give me some sort of thing for that, instead of me just grabbing all the miniatures and tossing them in the box. But what do we know about this? Nothing, except for the fact that they're slowly teasing a few characters like Punisher Ghost Rider, essentially, right? Those sorts of combinations that aren't in the regular Marvel, canon, but are coming across as what-if versions or slight variations of history giving you this different result, right? That's what the multiverse is. All the different what-if scenarios that could have been incorporated, encapsulated, or whatever else. The big question, though, is we saw Galactus. What else are they going to have in store for us? What else are they going to have in store? What's going to be the main theme? When we saw, X-Men, it was sort of obvious, right? You have either Magneto, you have Apocalypse. When you have the Avengers, right? You've got your certain cast of villains that you're going to be going through with like the Sinister Six, right? Like, what's going to be the iconic multiverse one? I have no idea. My wallet is a little bit scared, but if you're like me and you didn't pick up everything last time, it's actually surprisingly available on the secondary market, which is something new, but there wasn't as much exclusive non-stretch goal box as there was the first time around. So that's going to be an interesting test of the market to see what sort of really cool combinations and what sort of new mechanics, because again, there's only so many combinations of those like 4 symbols that you can put on a card. So what other elements are you going to give me to actually entice me to get it? And to get rid of some of my other ones, because that's eventually what's going to happen too, is I'm going to start weeding out expansions if you're like anything like me. So that is number 1. And if we pull up the page here, you can see that with this picture, we've already got 6,300 people following this page, and it's going to be easily 5 figures by the time it ends. Alternate realities, galactic villains, new rules. I have no idea. I'm excited because I think a lot of these, if they keep up with the evolution of X-Men, could give us new mechanics that are more interesting and replace even some of the old stuff altogether. So I'm all in. Maybe. Probably. Interrupting everything else, had to throw that in the middle of this video because there was just a bigger recent announcement that bumps a lot of the other things on this list. And that, my friends, is a new Aeon Trespass ODYSSEY standalone in 2023 coming from Into the Unknown. Holy freaking cow, Batman. Oh yeah, because that's what we need, right? The 12 Sins of Hercules. I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced. And that's all we know. Standalone open world campaigns, being plural, new regions, new secrets, new mysteries, new ways to play, heroes, villains, and approach to the voyage. Everything that you want out of it, completely standalone as well, if you couldn't get one of the first 3 cycles, or the first 3 cycles as a whole are too big for you to want to dip your toes in, and you want to see what it's like without having to spend that much. There you go. Sometime in 2023, folks. Boom! My boys over at Into the Unknown dropping the bomb after I filmed this, having to make me update this in the middle. There you go. Back to your regularly scheduled video. Second up, this is going to be a little bit of a surprise for you guys, but I'm going to go a little bit sideways outside of my usual norm. I'm going to go with Chip Theory Games' The Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era. Now, it's no Skyrim, but it is still Elder Scrolls. And so that's going to be a really intriguing aspect of what is Chip Theory going to do with this, because this is going to be, I would say, more along the lines of your Too Many Bones, in the sense that it is multiplayer. It's 1 to 4 player. A lot of the other titles have been 1 or 2, or thought to be exclusively best at 1 or 2. I'm looking at you, Cloudspire. And so that's going to be the test. Will this play as well at multiplayer? Skyrim, the game from Multiverse, I mean, that obviously did really well in crowdfunding, but that was a lot of plastic. That was a lot of miniatures. What is Chip Theory going to bring for their originality and their deluxeification scheme with this game? And it's an Elder Scrolls game. It's another video game port, although it's, you know, slightly different, to the tabletop. How is that going to hold true? How is the system that we are familiar with Elder Scrolls in terms of the stat customization and the leveling up and the questing going to be utilized in this game versus, say, the Multiverse game? They say each adventure is going to span over the course of essentially 3 gameplay sessions, about an hour each in length, where you get a single hero that you're going to be controlling through all 3 of these sessions, managing, they say, the multiple skills. Session to session progression is more meaningful, but it's not absolutely necessary, which means you can hop in, hop out a little bit easier. And, you know, there's going to be some narrative gameplay, or you can play with the same group forever, depending on how you want your dynamics to go. But there's going to be experience aplenty, they say, based on the board game description. So it's going to allow you to totally diverge your characters, which is what I really want to see in a game like this. How different can I make them? How asymmetric can I be in that way? And I think this is really probably one of the coolest things out there, especially as someone who's starting to play at the lower player counts of 1 to 2 or one player two-handed. Now, if we go over to the Gamefound page here, you can see that we already have 15,000 people following for this sometime in March. I was wrong earlier, launch. And so that's about all the concrete details we have. But if you scroll down here, what you get to see is a little bit of that framework that they're talking about. Skills, classes, enemies, quests, most ambitious Chip Theory game ever made. You talk about the different areas. You talk about cooperative. I love that. Exploration, character building, and combat. 30 main story quests alone in the base game. Now, note that they put that in the, sorry, not the base game, the core box. So that means there's going to be extras already that are going to be included. A little bit of the gameplay sneak here in terms of the tile laying, so more like a Cloud Spire. But if you scroll down to the character board here, it looks more reminiscent of a Too Many Bones. So that's what you're going to see, and that's what you're going to get. And as I've said with all the Chip Theory games, you're going to get a better price. So it's going to see what is that actual price when the time comes. Next up, and this was a little bit of a toss-up between 3 and 4, because I've gone back and forth, especially now with the emergence of Aeon Trespass Odyssey emerging as one of the best games, or one of the best narrative big world exploration games as a whole. It's pushed down Sankokushin for number 3 spot. And don't get me wrong, I'm still incredibly hyped because I think this game has such dynamic gameplay, situational awareness in combination with the overworld that I think it looks still very amazing. Axis Mundi has been very close to the vest in terms of when, how, and what, but they've said it's going to be, I believe, now in the first quarter of 2023. So that's going to be the other big test. Where does this one fall? What does the price point look like? They've said it's already going to be less than like a KDM, so you don't have to worry about like a $500 or $600 price point, but you could still be easily talking $200 or $300 given the quality of the miniatures and their previous individual resin projects that they put out. I would expect something along those lines. Apart from that, we know that it's sort of this medieval-esque fantasy combination with a dynamic interaction with a open world that is evolving as you go along and will not wait for you, sort of like Aeon Trespass Odyssey in the same regard, where if you only choose to spend your time doing this or that, there's other stuff that's going to go on and not wait for you. You know, it's not going to be a Final Fantasy where Final Fantasy, you know, you go off and you do side quests and the main quest just kind of stays there, or you go off and do the main quest and the side quests just stay there. It's going to evolve. It's going to change. It's going to, you know, cause consequences as you go along. And there's going to be also, this is the other provocative thing, the psychological encounters where personality as well as tactical maneuvering are going to play a much heavier role. I think it's aesthetically probably one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen, but we need to see how the narrative, the campaign, and the intelligent enemies that you can even emotionally, psychologically win over to your side bring us. And I would be, you know, lying if I didn't tell you that this was higher on my list depending on how some of those things interact and how those things work. But this is probably going to be harder to get to the table than either the other two, and that's probably ultimately why it got bumped down to number 3 rather than number 1 or 2 this year. Even though I think I've talked about it each of the last 2 years for this list. Anyway, side note there, but it's going to be amazing. It's just going to be whether or not do you have too many of these games already. Frosthaven, Oathsworn, Aeon Trespass, Odyssey, Kingdom Death, anything else along those lines. Madara, Waves 2 and 3. I mean, those are the games that are competing for the same table space, the same time, the same mental capacity. And so that's why I love it. But is it going to be? Probably. Axis Mundi, if you watch this, you know, if you want to send me a prototype copy, I'm all in, baby. Okay, so that is number 3. What's number 4? Number 4 maybe is a bit of a surprise to you, but if you knew that I had Dwellings of Eldervale sitting right next to me right here, then it probably wouldn't be as much of a surprise. And number 4 is going to be Andromeda's Edge. I have been diving into games like this, games like Unconscious Mind recently, and getting my feet wet and my appetite teased. And I like these sort of things that are sort of mid-level, very highly tactical, very highly adaptable with moving parts, but not as much overarching necessarily need for long-term strategy. I'm not good at long-term strategy. I am a great tactician. I'm not the other. But Andromeda's Edge is going to be dwellings in space ramped up. It's going to be what I wanted Voidfall to be, right? I'm looking at Voidfall, still, you know, wondering about backing a late pledge, but this is going to be more as a 1 to 5 player 4X dwellings in space, if you will. Not necessarily totally 4X, but more worker placement. You have a starship. You launch your starships. They regroup all the starships in. When you launch them, you send them to a region, and your choices are based on what you can place there and how the positions are compared to the other ships. And a battle can occur depending on where things are at and what else is near you, including raiders. Dice mechanic, which I haven't seen, but I know that Luke Laurie has been touring in the convention tour over the last several months, getting a lot of prototype testing. I know that a couple content creators have it because we're going to see this one at the end of January, probably going near head to head with Multiverse. And so, I mean, again, I wish I was on that short list. I won't be, but that's okay because I'm going to be watching this one very, very heavily and very closely. It's just a question of, do they split the pledge levels like they did previously with Dwellings? And is it going to be sort of that, you know, mild, medium, and, you know, hot, if you will, or standard, deluxe, and super mega legendary deluxe over the top, everything in between, right? And so that's really what I'm doing and wondering if it's going to be a price point management, because I'm guessing it's not going to be anywhere near the original price points of Dwellings, even if they do that same sort of pricing and boxing scheme, if you will. It's a tableau engine building game, and that's the other aspect of mechanics that I really like with this. You're building new civilizations, developments on planets, factories, finance, all of those sorts of things. I don't know if it's going to be for me, but this is probably the biggest gamble on this list that I would be willing to venture a wager on and go for it and just say, you know what? Boom, baby. There we go. And that's why it's easily number 4 on this list. Now, I'll be frank with you. These top 4 are head and shoulders above everything else on this list. That's not to say 5 through 10 are anything lackluster, but of these 4 games, these are the ones most likely for me to be, you know, very heavily invested in, and that's why they were an easy top 4. Now, the rest are still very good and very solid, and I think they're worth talking about, and that's why we need to talk about them, because it's going to bring other aspects and very, very interested parties to the table. Number 5 is that just in fact, Huang. Huang is a remake of Yellow and Yangtze. I love Yellow and Yangtze. I have a copy right over here on my shelf. It is a great game. It's a little bit heavier though. It's a little bit easier to get played. Blue Lagoon or Babylonia. So Babylonia hits the table a lot easier. It's a lot easier to explain Babylonia. It's a little bit less conceptual. Yellow and Yangtze, Tiger and Euphrates. The fight is, you know, 50-50 oftentimes, it feels like, in terms of what people prefer. Well, Yellow and Yangtze's out of print, so this is bringing that back, but they're bringing it to you in both a miniature plastic heavy driven route as well as a standard driven route. And that's going to be sort of the make it or break it, I think, for a lot of people. And the fact that they're acknowledging that, hey, plastic isn't for everyone, I like that, but is it actually going to be worthwhile to pick up the standard version on crowdfunding when it comes over to Gamefound in January? Again, going head to head probably with Andromeda's Edge and Multiverse. So those are 3 big heavy name projects, because if it's a plastic driven model, then it's not going to be under triple digits. Not that you can get Yellow and Yangtze for under triple digits right now anyway, so take that for what you will. But if you can get it, say, for $40 or $50 at retail a year from now, is that more appetizing? What else are they going to give for people like me who have Yellow and Yangtze? I thought back after a couple of years ago, there was an announcement of a Yellow and Yangtze, if you look it up on Board Game Geek, Royal Palace expansion. If there's an expansion, is it compatible with Yellow and Yangtze? Or am I just SOL? Like, if they include an expansion here, do I have to have Huang to make it work? And to be very frank with you, I love Yellow and Yangtze also because it has wooden components, and the wooden components are top notch, especially from a retail edition game. I skimmed over the forum comments. I can't really tell how much difference there is going to be from Yellow and Yangtze. But we can pull up the Gamefound page over here. Again, another Gamefound. Gamefound is really getting some bigger names here. The question is, can they stay with the momentum of the Kickstarter visibility? And we have yet to see that in over a year now of them gaining traction in that sense. The big projects, no problem. The small projects, meow. Anyway, campaign preview. Only 1,700 people following this, but this is going to be one where a lot of people are going to be wait and see. There's no information on the page apart from the description and a picture of what the board looks like in a slightly different manner. And if they're using cardboard chits versus plastic, unless there's additional gameplay content, I frankly am going to just keep my Yellow and Yangtze. And so that's going to be the issue. Plastic, cardboard, or is there something else in between? I would love a wooden version of this. I think you would get a lot more people in, but I don't know anything about that side of things in marketing, so that's just one man's opinion who doesn't know what he's doing. So there you go. That's number 5. Next up, we're going to go slightly differently as well. This is a 3 to 7 player game. Another Knizia. This is Zoo Vetus. This is a remake of K Vetus. And this is more of an evolution of the previous game that they put out, now with animals. I like that. Deduction, point movement, hidden victory points, and bribery. I mean, a very dynamic game offering you different elements to what we're used to. Enhancing the 3-player game, which, in some of these player counts, the extremes tend to be the issue. What you're going to be doing in this game is you're going to be slowly and very sneakily trying to maneuver and position yourself up the ladder to become the zoo mascot above all of the other asymmetric animal powers and creatures that you're going to be battling against at the table. Like I mentioned, 3 to 7 players, adding a 6th and 7th player module or board, and giving it more variety in terms of that, as well as ramping up the 3-player lower player count issues as well. Now, they've already revealed about 7 or so factions on the Board Game Geek forums: Armadillo, Ibis, Crocodile, Marmoset, White Tiger, Hyena, kind of some cool different ones. And so the question just is, do the mechanics hold up? Is the mechanic going to give it a higher rating than the previous implementation? I mean, it's not that it was a bad game, but the previous implementation has a 6.5 rating on Board Game Geek. So how do you improve when something was thought of that initially? Can you improve it significantly enough to entice people? They say also chunky animal figures that are going to be present, but are they actually going to be relevant to gameplay, or is it just going to be a sort of a nice deluxification? Because we've seen that with deluxifications with something like Wild Serengeti, which was sort of meh. Or the Everdell tree does nothing for me whatsoever. So if it's more like that, I'm not as enticed, because then you're also raising the price point. But if it adds something significant to a gameplay aesthetic as well, okay, Bitewing, you got me. Trailblazers, boom. This one, let's see what you can do. So that is number 6. Number 7, again, we're going slightly differently, because I was not a fan of the crowdfunding campaign of Ascension Tactics originally, but this is Ascension Tactics Inferno, like they're going Arcadia Quest, anyway. But with Stoneblade Entertainment here, sometime in the first quarter, we're going to see the sequel expansion to Ascension Tactics, essentially the combination of a tactical deck builder on a map. Sort of like if you remember Senjutsu, only you're having a team versus just a solo fighter situation. And although I widely panned the crowdfunding campaign when it came up, because I said, I don't need this game for $150 or $200 when you're already told me that you're going to offer it at retail for like $40 or $50. And they did that. But people really think highly of this combination. It's got an 8.2 rating, speaking of Board Game Geek ratings, and that's not insignificant for the amount of people that have it and have gotten it and have made it available at retail to be liking it. Anything over an 8 rating really speaks to doing something right. And so just the question was originally, were those two things going to be a good combination? Like, Ascension isn't known as the best deck builder that stood the test of time. It was one of the originals. I give a lot of kudos. A lot of other stuff stands on the shoulders, but it hasn't been the one that's been like, oh wow, this just came out more recently and they've redone things, and wow, does it stand? Wow, does it really? But this people have been really, really pleased by. And I have seriously been looking at picking up a copy of just the standard retail edition for those reasons. Now, there were a little bit of gameplay, I think, exclusives on the crowdfunding game, but not enough to make me go, I need one of the plastic heavy driven miniature models. And if I can get away with 90% of the game, I mean, I don't use a lot of those promos anyway, truth be told. So am I really missing out on anything? No, not really. The only problem is Stoneblade has really, again, held their cards close to the vest. We don't know what Inferno is going to offer. We don't know what Inferno is going to bring differently. There's not even a Board Game Geek entry for Inferno yet, and we'll have another one of those games as well coming up that doesn't have an entry. But that's going to be the question. Similarly to Multiverse, in terms of Marvel United, what does the evolution bring? Just like with Zuvetus, how are you going to improve on things when the formula is already well established? Can you make things better? Because Arcadia Quest, we saw Inferno, we saw Pets, we saw Riders, and then we saw Jumping the Shark and with Starcadia Quest. And, you know, it wasn't always more is better. And that's going to be the big make it or break it with this. Number 8, again, we're going to go with the higher player counts here. This one is going to be outside my norm, but this one has the most interest to me as someone who appreciates but does not actively participate in a lot of social deduction games. We have here from Godot Games, we have Among Cultists. It's inspired by Among Us. So right there, they're going with a significant pedigree. 4 to 8 secret investigators trying to investigate what's going on evil-wise in a university. Cultists, though, are Among Us. Now we pull up the Kickstarter preview page here. You can see I'm not the only one who thinks so. 5,000 people for this launch are going to be waiting and seeing, I believe, on January 9. That's, again, not insignificant, especially for a social deduction game. Now, when we go up here to the website, you can see that they already have the rule book in, 8 different languages. So they're really prepping for launch very heavily. When we pull up the rule book here, just to give you a brief overview, main point. 2 different teams, investigators and cultists. Only one wins. The role marker you get at the beginning of the game determines which one you are, as well as your team affiliation and the role on said team. The other nice thing that separates it from the other games in this line is if you die, yes, you have an alive or a dead status, but if you die, you're not out. You have different privileges as a ghost than your living counterpart, which may behoove you depending on the game state. And here's the tricky part, right? You can be dead at the beginning of the game without even knowing it because your status is actually face down in front of you when it's dealt to you in the beginning of the game. You're going to be traveling around different rooms, 10 different characters here, and a whole lot of cards and instructions that are going to be going along with this in terms of the victory counts, the player counts, the division of who's who, depending on how many players you're playing with. And it just looks like a Shadows over Camelot in a good way, in a good way, in a good way. A lot of people hear that and they immediately tune out. In a good way, in terms of how many cultists there are, because if you look at this, anything under 7 is just 1, 7 or 8 is 2. So this gives me a different game of the social deduction player count because we're going this week to play a couples night with a couple other couples. And, the main things I'm bringing are deduction, murder in Hong Kong, and my secret Voldemort. And so I'd like to have something else in the lines of those that plays a little bit deeper, but not too much like Blood in the Clock Tower, because that is also impossible player count wise with me and also impossible price point, as well as just never going to get played because of the complexity as well. So all of this hits. That's why you have 5,000 people following this page. Now, number 9, we're going to go a slightly different direction as well. And this is Stone Saga. I told you, I'm, covering everything. Stone Saga, the latest from OOMM, in the lines of Mythwind, if you remember Mythwind, which was more asymmetric worker placement, character utilization with an open-ended, Zen-like style game. And I, wasn't, truth be told, the biggest fan of the Zen-like continual worker placement. Nothing wrong with it, but I'm not a huge worker placement. However, now Stone Saga is cooperative survival. And so each generation, each round essentially is represented by that. And you're going to be crafting, trying to survive, trying to create new things to allow you to adapt and survive in terms of building, and, as the example uses in terms of a recipe, a stone and a stick. Creating a spear. Can you actually make it? Is it going to work? Working together to build the community, to build the village, exploration, experience the world in a different way in each play session, drop in, drop out. That's going to be different. It reminds me very much of Lands of Galzier in a slightly different way. So that's what it gives me vibes of. You're going to have mysteries, harsh conditions, monsters that you're going to find along the way. Are they always going to be against you? Are they going to be able to be won over to your side? Those are the questions that I think a game like this brings up. And again, if it's anything like Mythwind, it's going to be absolutely aesthetically pleasing. So that's never been an issue from OOM. It's just a question of, similarly, as we talked about earlier with, Elder Scrolls or, Multiverse or anything like that, how many of those do you need? And that is another in the line of these saga-esque games. So that's number 9. Number 10 here. Number 10 actually doesn't have a Board Game Geek page. This is the one I was referring to, is Conquest Princess. There is next to no information on this, but I heard several people talking about it from, I think it was PAX or even Essen, that they said, hey, this game really kind of seems cool. Now, don't get me wrong. The artwork is not up my, preferred nature, but you are taking on as a combination of space, fashion, and friendship, co-op, big box. It's a light speed theme. Difficulty is dark matter. I can't make these puns up. That's straight from the website, actually. As an agent of the Tiara organization, the Temporal Intergalactic Armed Response Agency. And yes, that's a dog on a jetpack. That's all I know. There's a few videos out there, but even the website from Fight in a Box doesn't have anything else apart from space rangers, giant robots, magical gifts combined to thwart the classic space problems that are going to present themselves. I'm hoping more in a Spaceballs way rather than, say, anything else. But that's number 10 on the list. So what else we got here? A couple honorable mentions at the end too, because, I got a couple things I got to give a shout out as well. And we'll do a couple real quick here at the end. I was a little bit enamored, but I've, kind of gone back and forth on this as honorable mention number 1. This is Batman Escape from Arkham Asylum. This is from Night Games. Night Games, who put out the Harry Potter game, which was poorly received. And it's been delayed. They had a person, actually, it was supposed to be launched in October this past year, got in a car accident, I think very bad one, right before it was supposed to launch. So they just said, hey, we can't do this. And so, you know what? You delay until you have to with emergencies or medical conditions. That is always a pass. But they've said now it's going to be coming in the next month or so. And so we're going to see what this does. The only thing that sort of makes me wonder about it is it's another one of these reverse games where you have the bad guys in a semi-cooperative sense dungeon crawl trying to escape from Arkham Asylum using several different systems that are going to be available to you, like alarms and prison doors and all of those things that you're going to have to manage. And again, it's semi-cooperative. You have to defeat Batman. Dozens of characters, they say on the board game description, that you can play as. They've done updates. There's a Gamefound page preview already that has gone through like 3 or 4 of the bigger ones, like Killer Croc and Penguin and Riddler and, Scarecrow or something like that. Each character is going to have their own hidden objective, which can range from escaping on their own to sowing as much chaos as possible in the asylum, and you gain an advantage over your companions, and you want to be the one who finally achieves victory. But it's the question of how do you achieve victory, though? Batman's going to come at a certain point. The escalation is going to go from green to yellow to red. They've given a brief overview of the mechanics on the Gamefound page, but nothing actually in depth. We haven't seen a rule book. The other thing that makes me have a little bit of mixed feelings, though, as well, is that the time length is 30 minutes on Board Game Geek. So that means it's either going to be super light or it just plays really fast in terms of some of the simultaneous play or the action selection, which could be a boon or a curse depending on it. And so that's why I'm a little bit mixed on it between that and coming from Night Models. I'd like to see what they've got, but I'm going to kind of wait and see until we, get more of a really scoped down, hands-on sort of view. The other one that really is going to get a closer look is also coming on Gamefound. Again, both of these are on Gamefound. A lot of these are on Gamefound, as I've said. Street Fighter V Champions Edition Legend. Now, most people know this because it was originally going to be put out by a different company, but now it's going to be coming from Colossal Games. And so Colossal Games has picked this up, and this is going to be cooperative brawling action from 1 to 4 players, utilizing your favorite Street Fighter characters. Special powers, combo attacks, all of your fan favorites, Chun-Li, Ryu, Ken, I'm assuming M. Bison, Sagat, that sort of Blanca-ish combination. But the real question is, this is coming from the previous line of Blacklist. So the previous games that utilized a similar system of like Street Masters, I don't think they're going with that system. I think they're getting away from that. Whoops. But I think that's going to be the make it or break it. How different is it? What else does it bring? How do you utilize those mechanics? Because we saw Street Fighter as a miniature game. And there's supposed to be a Mortal Kombat game coming out sometime soon, although maybe that got canceled. I can't remember. Maybe that actually did get canceled. But that's the sort of thing that it makes you go, okay, well, why have one? What does it differ from the other? How does this compare to other cooperative asymmetric power type games? Apart from just, strip the IP away, and are the mechanics actually going to hold up? So those questions aren't answered yet, so that's why it's also an honorable mention. The last honorable mention that I have to talk about is from the makers of ICE. This Way Games is Founders, Cryo Architect Masters, and you are doing a tiling situation. If you remember ICE, it was sort of this innovative tile worker placement game where you went down through the layers of the tiles, but it was incredibly expensive for what it was. There weren't a whole ton of exclusives, a little bit of deluxification, so I ended up passing because it was also heavier on the worker placement. Now they're coming back with more of a tile placement, team-based legacy game with hidden victory points and hidden bonuses. And that is going to be more impressive because you have a gigantic cave structure that's going to be raiding out around them, and you're going to be trying to build what was the first city on top of that. You also have an alliance system of 2 other players that you don't know about, and it's going to be anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes from 3 to 6 players. Again, that time length is perfect for what I like to play, so I'm going to have a heavy look-see eye on it when it launches as well. That's it. Those are the games to know right now of 2023. Obviously, I'll put out 2 or 3 more videos of this as the year goes along because there's going to be other big names that pop up as more things get announced, and I just love talking about these things in general. And when January comes around, we get to look back not only 1 year, but 2 years. So hold on, buckle up, and hit the subscribe button if you want, because I'm trying to get to 10K, and I'm trying to decide when to do a giveaway. So help me figure out when you want to see a giveaway done. Maybe I should have a giveaway done when I hit 10K. Or maybe just 7K, because 10K we might not get there by the end of the year. Subscribe, tell your friends. Anyway, that's all I got. Stay classy, see you around. Have a great day. Have a great new year.